Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Do this another time. If you're interested, Destinies, Lucky Duck Games. You've heard me talk about it in passing a couple times. Here it is. Here's my review of it. Here are my thoughts, pros, cons, like always. A little bit of gameplay, a little bit of explanation, if you will, of what you're doing, how you're doing it. This is one of their hybrid games that they have called now. That is sort of their line of things. Using the app. This is a story-driven, like 1 to 3 player game where it is a narrative. You are trying to achieve a certain quest, a la your Destiny, versus one of 2 ways, and trying to be the first one to do so, in the non-solo mode at least. So let's take a look. My thoughts, and everything else in between. Let's do this. So like I mentioned, Destinies is a very unique style of games. It's very intuitive. It is also very different mechanically. It is a combination of mechanics that you have seen before elsewhere. Moving around on a grid-based map. Exploring locations that are on said grid. Leveling up your character. Getting new abilities. Having equipment, having to mitigate what equipment that you're keeping or losing, using said equipment to achieve quests, gathering pieces of a quest in order to finish it first. None of those things are new. You've heard, you've done, you've seen those elsewhere. Now, have you done it with an app? And the question is, would you like doing it with an app? Because that is one of the big debates nowadays about app usage. I see people very much divided when it comes to that. I'm pro app. I'm con app. Con air. No, that's a whole different thing. But that is always the concern. How integrated, how necessary, how useful is the app? Or is the app there and you feel like, well, I could have had this done another way, or it just feels too burdensome to be of value or make me want to play it in the first hand. So let's take a look at what it actually looks like on the table, and then I'll come back to you with my final thoughts, pros and cons, and all that jazz. This right here is the basic setup for a character in Destinies. You can see right here that I am playing as the witch, and I have just randomly, sort of from memory, put out the stats here because, as I mentioned, it is an app-driven game, and the app will tell you exactly where these line up. So you have multiple elements on your player board. First and foremost, everybody gets 2 of these white dice. These white dice are your test dice, and you are using these every single roll. You're rolling them, adding up the sum. And then the purple die are your, exhaustion die, your stamina die, if you will. And so once you use them, they are used for that round, and you cannot reuse them unless something else gives them back to you. But at the beginning of each one of your turns, you get to put one of them back and refresh them, essentially. So if I use all 3, I'll go over there, next round I get one of these back, so I can choose when I'm going to do this. And now this is the tricky part, is that you may do multiple tests in a turn. You may not know what's going to happen with one test, so do you use the purple die right away, or do you bank on the fact that you have another test coming that you might need to use it on? Or if you just don't use it, you may not have another test coming, so you may have a lower chance of succeeding in that test. Now, I'm jumping ahead a couple steps, but let's go back up a little bit. How you're doing this is, let's say I rolled this, right? So I have a 4, a 1, and a 3. And so I have a total here of 8. And then what you do, depending on if it is blue, green, or red, and it will tell you in terms of intelligence, dexterity, and power, which test it is. And you can get a sense of it even by what it is. Okay, you're going to try and catch a crow, right? It's going to be dexterity. You're going to try and knock down a door. It's going to be power. I mean, So then if my roll was 8 here, let's say it was intelligence. Let's say it was dexterity, because the result is going to be the same either way. Because what you do is you roll this total, and then you look and you see where does 8 land you. 8 lands you right here. How many of these markers did you pass? I passed 2. That means I have 2 successes. I put 2 into the app, and the app gives me a result. The harder the test, the more successes you need to get a better result. Now, obviously, now I said that if these 2, it's going to give me 2 successes. Now, in the power, it's only going to give me 1. But you'll notice that there are only 3 markers in the power, so those tests are a little bit different in general. So that is the gist, the core of what this game is in a nutshell, is manipulating these, rolling die, choosing when to roll your dice in general, and how you are figuring out the mystery, how you are accomplishing what you're trying to set out to do along the way. Now, again, a lot of you are going to look at this and go, oh, well, it's a dice roll. I hate dice rolling. Now, let me be clear. Let's not dismiss dice rolling altogether, because, you know, as much as I am a fan of a good dice chucker, there is also a limit to my willingness to be at the mercy of those dice in the first place. And that is where these 2 huge stacks of cards come in. And now I've divided them here, and you'll know why I've divided them in a second. So this, you can see they're all numbered in the lower left-hand corner. And I know this is hard to make out, and even with a zoom up, it really can't be done, but this is 24. And they're numbered 1 through 24 in this stack, and 25 through 72 in this stack, because these are all multiple copies of lots of things. Traps, rope, medicine, potions, herbs, legal documents, all of that stuff. Even when you get to the bottom, things like horses, and shields, and bows, and axes, and charms, and food, and all sorts of generic stuff. Things that you can have multiples of. And all of these are your unique items that are going to be part of the story, that are going to play a significant role. A specific net, a specific tarot card, a very specific dagger. So that is how I've divvied them up. And so you can see there is still a considerable amount of card actually in this game in both of these stacks right now. And a lot of these cards are going to be how you mitigate not only these stats, but also the dice themselves, because some will just allow you to add 4 to a dice roll. Some will allow you to just set a dexterity to 10 and discard the card, the item itself in the first place. Some of them are always add 1 to a green dice roll result. So not only can you affect the total of the roll, but you can also use those cards to affect the slots here, because some of them will say, okay, if you have X number of other cards, move a total of these to the left by that number of cards. So I had 4 other cards, I could move 1, 2, 3, and maybe I want to move one of these down to 4. So that is the sort of thing you're going to do. Now that is also where these little tokens come in as well. Certain things are going to earn you experience, both good actions and bad actions. And you can cash these in at any point on your turn, and you can return them to the bank, and you can get a total of 2 spots moved on one as well. So you can move 2 spots, or you could move 1 down and another 1 down. And that is how you're going to be affecting your rolls then, as you get effectively stronger, quote unquote, rolls needing to be less to get more successes. Relatively straightforward, easy to grasp. Now again, like I mentioned, 5-card hand limit. And that is where these little tokens come in handy right here. I didn't mention, but of these cards, you can have 5 total at a time. It doesn't matter if they are items you need for the quest or whatever they are. So if you are in a location and you are forced to become more than full in terms of the equipment that you can bear, you have to discard 1. And so what you end up doing, say, with, this parchment is, okay, maybe my character is over in this field right here. We'll just put him right here for the one that's face up. And I have to discard this parchment, so I make a little trade pile, and I put a marker down here to indicate this is where this trade pile is, and that this one is represented by this one on the map. Again, very straightforward. I hope to see this in a lot of other dungeon crawls in the future, where there is a limit. And they are all color-coded. You probably have, I think, like 10 different colors in the game, so you're not limited, because you will also run into locations around the map. Now, let's talk about that for a minute, and let's talk about the map. So, let's talk about this map for a second. Okay, so you're exploring this location. Let's say you're right there, and you pull it up in the map, and you go there, and it tells you maybe there is this wanderer, this woodsman in the woods, and then also this is other location. This is an old barn that you find. And so you're going to have the option to visit one of these 2 things. You can explore or be at one time tile and do one of the two spots potentially on the tile itself. Now you can stay at the same spot if you want to on consecutive turns in terms of the tiles, but also even the person if you need to. If you need them to craft something and you are giving them and you are only able to give them one piece of an object at a time, you can do that. But sometimes they will just go away if you have completed everything that can be done there, or sometimes the person will actually move to a different tile. Sometimes you know where they move and sometimes you don't. They're just taken off the map and you have to find them elsewhere. So that goes into the exploring aspect as well. So you'll see that all four of these tiles, orthogonal, are flipped over. They're at a little bit of a darker color than the colored side of the map. And when you explore into a tile, you flip it over, you click on that area on the app, it tells you, and then it tells you, to lay however many of these down or the people down or whatever it would be. And then it gives you the option of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And then you have various options at each of said locations. Gold is also one of those resources. Gold is how you're buying, because some of these people you will run into on the map, you can buy, some of their stock, okay, not anything like that, but, essentially do that. And all of these items cost anywhere between like 1 and 3 or 4 gold, potentially. I don't know what the upper limit is. I haven't seen all the cards, but that is the sort of thing you're going to do. And then you can rifle through here and buy them. And they tell you, again, in the upper right-hand corner, exactly what they cost. So in this case, this is only going to cost you 1 gold. And so as you explore, I would then, we'll move this to the side here a second, I would then put out, if the map was this big, now, assuming the map is this big, because the map does not go on infinitely, more orthogonal tiles. Let's say this is the edge of the map, so nothing's over here, but I might put out 2 more tiles here that can be explored on future turns. And they're all numbered, and they all tell you what they'll be laid down as, and so that is how you explore. And then you are moving around, and you can only move a limit of 2 tiles unless you have something like a horse that maybe allows you to move 3, or if you discard your horse, then maybe you can move anywhere you want on the map just once, but then you lose the card altogether. Let's talk about those items for a second. Let's talk about a very obvious one. Some of these feats that you'll be trying to do, some of these ability checks. Let's use a rope as the example here, right? So the rope. So you may be able to go into this encounter, and let's say you have to capture this person. Now, you could maybe use your wile or your power to either charm them or dissuade them from escaping from you, or you can maybe just brute force them and punch them. Or if you have an item, like say maybe a rope, maybe you could use your dexterity. Maybe it gives you a choice to do dexterity and then scan in the item. Now, the problem is you're probably going to lose the item most often in some of those scenarios, so you have to be willing to lose it, and then you lose the discard ability, which in this case of the rope is you get 2 successes in a dexterity test. But oftentimes, if you discard this item altogether, you will just succeed in the quest in the first place. So it doesn't matter how many successes you would have had. And you don't need to use not the white dice, but the more important purple die in the first place. Now, the other thing I did not mention with some of these said purple die are they have one side that is an automatic success. Now, it's not like the Simon dice where you get it, and if you get it, it's an exploder and you get to go again. No, it's just one automatic success. Now, the downside is, a 2 or 3 might actually, when these things are all moved over here, might actually be much more advantageous for you to have the 3 than the automatic success. But so be it. There are also cards in the deck that allow you to even maybe set a side of a die if you want as well. So again, mitigation is definitely there. So that is the basic setup, the basic rules, the basic what you need to know about Destinies. And what you're doing is just trying to figure out where things are on the map, go to them in certain orders, even having to double back or triple back, and interacting appropriately most of the time, and go from there in order to solve the quest, in order to solve your destiny. Now, I didn't talk about destiny at all, and you can see on the witch here, she has 2, a purple and a white, and they each have destinies on the backside. And so what you're doing is when you can also interact with some people, you can ask them about your destiny, and they may give you clues in terms of where to go, who to talk to, that sort of thing. And so you have one way or the other. Now, if you start going down one way, say the purple in this case, you are not limited. You can do a scan of the white one at any point. It just may not help you if you've significantly gone down here and now you're changing. Well, then you're going to be a little bit protracted or behind other people who may be sticking to one. Or not. Well, you might just find that one is, not working for you, and you're finding all of the other things for the quest that you're not doing, and then you switch and it works out a lot better. So There's no either or in that sense. So now that you've seen that, pros, cons, everything else in between. So pro, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, none of this stuff in Destinies, when you're thumbing through this, and this rule book, again, I'll give them a lot of kudos. This is not a thick rule book. I mean, it's really simple, it's really intuitive, it's really short. So in terms of overhead, it's really good. The surprising thing for me when I was using this on my iPad was, unlike Search for Planet X, which also uses a similar feature that you can sync up between people, this doesn't do that. You really need the pass and play. And having it on the iPad was much better than having it on the iPhone, or whatever, phone versus tablet, whatever, you know what I mean. And so that was a little bit of a concern, I won't lie, when I started playing it. Like, okay, pass and play. If I want to pass and play, like, I'll go get like Ticket to Ride or something on, the iPad, and then we'll do it that way or something, like that. Again, going back to those mechanics, none of those mechanics were new, refreshing, or interesting, except for really the skill system that you saw me utilize. And I will flat out say that the sum of the parts is greater than the individual parts in this game. I know why people like this game. I can see why. It was fun. It was fun. Both of us playing, even the very first game, were like, oh, this is kind of fun. I worried that the app, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, was going to be burdensome, that it was going to be tedious. And I have not played this with 3 players, so I'm not sure how that dynamic would be. But 1 and 2 players, the app is without a doubt not burdensome, it's not clunky, it is not a detriment to this game. And so that's a very good thing. Because, again, I did not like it in the previous Lucky Duck game, the Chronicles of Crime one. I did not. I thought it was tedious. I thought it was rote. I mean, it did a good job and it had all the information and it's an overall solid game, but it's clearly not a game for me, and especially the way it uses the app. But this one, it flows the narrative. It makes it very clear. Like sometimes you click on something, you do the check, and oh, whoops, you can't do anything else at the area. Boom, your turn's over, pass it. Oh, boom, happens, same thing, pass it back to you. I mean, so it is fluid, it is quick, it is, no analysis paralysis. This does not lengthen things from that side of things, and that is always also the concern. Now, again, this is a little bit dark, It's not the most light of themes. There's definitely an adult side of things. So this is not a game that I would probably play with my children. This is not necessarily a family style game, though I think you could mechanistically play this at a younger age, 8, 9, 10, if the theme, was appropriate. The one unique mechanic, the skill checks. It's very interesting. It's very unique. It's not been done elsewhere that I know of. And it works. It works. Now, we felt a little misled, because it talks about, okay, more successes and better. And so it's always that yin and that yang, and that goes with experience of how low do I need to get those down on the track so that I'm making sure I get, X number of successes each time. Because that is definitely influencing how you're using your cards, where you're going, how you're interacting, what ones you're focusing on and which ones you're not. Because, again, sort of that little bit of unknown is, is 1 success going to be enough for this? Is 2 successes going to be enough for this? How difficult is some of this stuff going to be? Or do I really need to be moving those 3rd and 4th ones, to a more tenable-ish position? The miniatures, I could do without them. I don't think, especially with the size that some of these miniatures are and the quality, I would rather almost just have small standees. I would. I say that a lot of games, but these in particular, when they're so, itsy bitsy. The insert, it's top notch. Lucky Duck Games probably does pound for pound the best inserts out there on the market, or at least near the top. So from a production standpoint, Lucky Duck Games, you have nothing to be concerned about from that side of things if you are ever wondering about that. It goes in well, it stores well, it is put together very, very well. No issues there. Now, let's talk about the dice portion of things. Again, if you know me, if you know this channel, if you've heard me talk, I don't mind dice. I like dice. Dice don't like me, but I enjoy dice rolling, and this is no exception. The mechanism of always having your 2 dice, as well as how you're using the other dice and how you're able to regain them, it works, again, very fluidly, very well. It's very press your luck, but you have a control over it. And it goes back to that app-based system of choices that, okay, well, there's 3 or 4 decisions right here that I'm trying to choose from, and do I want to use my extra 2 or 3 dice right away on this first one to make sure I succeed? Or am I saving them to do the second thing in the mission? Okay, let's save them for the second thing in the mission, and then I do the first one and I succeed, but oh wait, I succeeded, so now the other ones are all gone and I can't do it and I just wasted it. Or you do the first one expecting them all to disappear, and then they don't, and then you only have your 2 dice, and then you have to decide whether or not it's worth trying or not. And so that was fun. We enjoyed that. Again, the sum of the parts in this game work really well together. Well-oiled machine. And bottom line is that it was a very, very enjoyable experience. Now, obviously, with this game, I mean, the biggest caveat, the biggest downside is, and this is my personal feeling, the limited replayability, because there are only so many of these scenarios that come with the base game. I don't have any of the expansions. So, a la the escape room-esque games, I mean, I guess if you want to compare it to that, this is essentially a 3D element escape room type game with limited content and limited replayability. And are you willing to pay for more scenarios in one box or not? With a fantasy element, with a moving around, with an upgrading, as opposed to just a purely escape-esque game. Because it takes that element of things, but it packages it so differently that, like I mentioned, I do not enjoy those other games, and I enjoyed this. And so if you're like me, I'd say this is worth a shot to see if you would like this separately, because it also, again, it plays very well solo. Not that I'm a solo player, but that is a very attractive feature to this game as well. Probably sometimes the most frustrating thing, though, is, as I've mentioned, those 2 Destinies. The positive thing with that is you are very flexible. You can go back and forth between which Destiny you want. It doesn't pigeonhole you one way or the other. But the frustrating thing is sometimes it's just a little bit too opaque in terms of trying to figure out what this one needs or this one needs, and someone else lucks into what they need on one side, and you run into a little bit of both. Or you just don't luck into that, and they are clearly at a significant advantage. So you need to be aware of that when it comes to that, because like I said, if you just randomly go someplace on the map that has what you need in the order which you need it, I went out of order not knowing that, okay, I need to go down here and get said animal to go up here to give it to said person. Well, I only found out because I went the wrong way, saw said person, and then 3 or 4 tiles later, oh, here's said animal that I needed to procure for said person to be able to get the thing that I needed. Now, I didn't know that they had the thing I needed. I lucked into that, but that's the sort of thing that if you don't like that, you don't have more complete control in terms of that knowledge, that mitigation, this is going to potentially very much frustrate you from that side of things. And then I would say avoid this, because there is going to be some of this, no matter what scenario it is, that you are just not going to be able to control to that extent. And you're not going to like this game from that side of things, because you're going to see other people around the table getting what they need in a way in which they need it, and you're not going to get it. And if that drives you crazy, this is not the game for you. Period. Overall, though, this is a really good game. Like, I know now why, with all of those things I mentioned, like an enjoyable experience. It's streamlined, it's easy to explain, it's easy to play. I know why everyone else likes it, and I'm not trying to go with the tide, but I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the experiences with it. Now, what rating would it finally get from me? I don't do typical ratings, And again, with the limited replayability in this, this makes a great game to then trade to someone else. Just like people are doing with the escape room games. Those mystery style whodunit games, everything in that realm. And that's what people do. Now, obviously, the expansions add more legs to this. I don't know what's different, or if it's just a different theme, just different scenarios, just more scenarios. I haven't dug into that by any means. Would I be interested in getting them and using it further? Yeah, absolutely. It's easy enough. It's easy to get to the table. I enjoy it. It's relatively limited in terms of time frame. Yeah. Am I going to seek them out? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to seek them out. If I find the right situation, yeah, I'd absolutely, while I still have this. But is this going to stay on my shelf for an ever and ever? No, it's not one of those games. It just isn't. In terms of the somewhat limited. Now, again, you can argue that, okay, well, if you take one of the other characters that you didn't use and you do the opposite Destiny, well, I kind of know how the narrative plays out now. And so I'm going to be able to game the game, and it's not going to be quite as enjoyable like playing any of those escape rooms or the Chronicles of Crime or those detective ones. Once you know where it ends up, getting there isn't as fun, because getting there is most of the fun in the first place, at least for me. So, it's probably going to get a 3 out of 5 in that sense in my rating, because, it's not meant to stay in my collection forever. I play through everything, I explore it to my content, and then I give it to someone else so that they can have a good time with it too, because that's what I think they will do as well. So, that's Destinies from Lucky Duck Games. Hope that was helpful. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know. As always, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Stay classy. I'll see you around.